Good morning. We'll bring the Planning Commission meeting to order. We have no items for the Zoning Board of Adjustment this morning, so we'll proceed directly to the Planning Commission agenda. If there are any members of the audience that wish to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, please fill out a speaker request and take it to the secretary at the side of the room here. They'll bring it up. If anybody has cell phones, please put them on silent or turn them off for the meeting. We'd appreciate it if any calls need to be taken, that it happens out in the hallway. The consent calendar, items 1 through 6 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the City Council. The City Council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 2, 15 UR 014. Item 4, 15 PD 024. Item 5, 15 PD 022. The Planning Commission's actions on these items are final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Community Planning and Development Services Department by the close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 6 staff would like removed from the consent calendar?
Yes, item number 6, please.
Any items 1 through 6 any Planning Commission members would like removed from the consent calendar? And are there any items 1 through 6 that any audience member would like removed? Then a chair would entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 5 in accordance with staff recommendations.
So moved.
Jan made the motion to approve. Karen seconded. All in favor of items 1 through 5?
Aye.
Opposed? Items 1 through 5 are passed. Item 6.
Good morning, Kip Harrington, Transportation Planner. Item number 6 is the approval of the final 2016-2019 Transportation Improvement Program. You have seen the draft previously. This is the final report. The reason we pulled this off the consent calendar is that the Department of Transportation identified yesterday that they may have some minor changes coming up to this before it gets approved by the MPO. They're expected to be extremely minor, just a couple changes in descriptions, maybe some very small funding tweaks. We wanted to make you aware of that, and if there are any major changes, then we'll certainly come back and let you know what those changes are with this Transportation Improvement Program. Are there any questions?
I don't see any, Kip. Thank you.
Okay.
Karen made the motion. Jan seconded. All those in favor of item number 6?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, item 6 passed. We're on to item 7.
Item number 7 is a major amendment to a plan development to reduce side yard setback for an existing dwelling from 8 feet to 5 feet. This one has been continued from the first meeting in July to allow the applicant to address drainage channel that needed to be constructed. Property location, property zoned low density residential district 2 with a final plan development. Future land use urban neighborhood. Elevation showing that, and previously when the when the structure was built on the property, it was discovered that the structure was, they used the wrong pins and the structure was built in the wrong place, and they needed to vacate a portion of the utility and minor drainage easement. They did submit that application and vacated the portion where the structure encroaches. However, it was discovered when one of the neighbors came to us with a complaint that the drainage feature that needed to be constructed in order to vacate the easement had not been constructed. That's why this one's been continued for so long. showing where the structure is. Signs posted on the property, that's the structure in question, and the structure next door. Fire department has indicated that they're okay with the separation between the structures. Looking to the south along Padre and to the north. Right here you can see there's an indentation or channel which wasn't previously there running down the middle. The applicant's engineer has indicated that it was constructed to their design and that it will accommodate the drainage for the requested reduction in the side yard setback. Looking directly across the street to the east. The request is for a reduction in the minimum required side yard setback from 8 feet to 5 feet. They vacated the utility and minor drainage easement portion where the structure encroaches, and they've constructed the drainage feature which accommodates the drainage for this requested setback reduction. There are other drainage issues, and the neighbor is here to speak to those other issues on the property. However, staff is recommending approval of the major amendment. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
I don't see any. I do have a speaker request form. Jan.
Well, my question will come after I think the neighbor speaks, but I'd like to hear what they have to say before making a motion or voting.
Sherry? I'm not going to take a try at your last name for fear of offending.
It's Dieterle.
Ah, well, I was going to go with that.
I just said him on there.
Can you identify yourself for the record?
Sherry Dieterle.
Thank you.
I don't think you need to turn it upside down.
It's a little dark, but I don't know if you can see. There was a few issues that I did have with the setback. You know, I did write a letter at the beginning of the whole process stating a lot of my concerns. You know, a lot of it was the proximity of the adjacent location to our property. You know, at that time that the property was being built, I actually addressed the builder and informed him that I felt that the property was being built too close to my property at that time. Of course, no action was taken. But I feel like with all the drainage issues that we're currently having, as you can see, they have come and tried to fix the property. And of course, my yard is the property that, of course, is being torn up. And you can see where they've put the drainage, but yet the water still sits in between the two properties. The other photo, you know, to your right there, shows I took that picture last night of our crawl space, showing how damp it is. And I also have another photo showing this one. You can actually see the water sitting underneath of our home. I'm concerned that this is going to damage our foundation with our property being that wet all the time. The water is not draining out of there. Before the home was built, I also have some photos of where water previously, that's where the water previously sat, which is the property. And of course, you can see they were having to pump water out of that adjacent property. And then you can see where it drains into my property through the backyard and also comes down through that side yard. Every single time there's any rain, the water just sits on my property. I've spoken to the builder several times to try to get this issue rectified since building the home 2 years ago. The last conversation that I had with him, he informed me that there was no issue and that they wouldn't be able to do anything for us. I feel like the drainage issue has not been properly addressed or taken care of. I feel that if the property was to have a better, drainage, to be able to fix that, I think it would be better. But this one you can't see where there's actually water just sits through that channel there. And the drench is so deep that you can't even mow through there properly. And I feel that if someone was to run through that area, and they could actually probably catch their foot in the trench that's been built. And I just don't feel like this is what I had in mind when they were going to fix this potential problem. And I feel that the other issues, the mold, I think this water's been sitting in our basement for months and months. Ever since the home has been built next to us, the fire issue, I did speak to, I think, Mr. Billings with the fire department. I still feel that the proximity of the home, is still a fire danger. My son's bedroom is the first room right next to the property next to us. We had to install a privacy fence because the back of the house where it does encroach, their bedroom window is right next to us. And I guess I feel like my family is having to take all of the burden of this mistake. So I just hope that you guys will hear me out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan?
Yeah, I remember when this came up before and I had read about it. I'm really uncomfortable with making Sherry, and I assume her husband, Dieterle, responsible for this when they were the one whose property the setback was improperly administered the first time, and to allow more to be close doesn't seem like the solution to either the water problem or the mistake or whatever was made when the house next to her was built too close. I mean, it was built too close. Why would they be the ones to suffer for this? And I would vote against this, but I also think I hope there is a better solution to resolve the Dieterle's water problem, because she's right, there will be problems from that water. There will be mold. There will be people getting sick as a result of it. And then there will be the city being sued because they allowed the mold and the property to be too close. It doesn't look to me like this item is the solution to the problem. So, thank you.
Karen?
Thank you. I know the planning staff has put their light on. I don't know if they're going to answer some of the questions that I have, but I think that, number one, the distance between the two houses are standard distances, although they're not in the right place. Is that an accurate statement? 8 feet on both sides?
No, it's 5 feet. The request is a reduction to 5 feet for this property. But the fire department's indicated that they're comfortable with the spacing between the structures.
Did I misread the staff report? I thought it said that because her home was not in the right spot, there is that distance between them that made the fire department say it's okay?
Yeah, I believe that's
Okay.
what, I don't know what the exact distance on her property is, though. Don't have that survey.
Okay, well, my thought is that the distance would be standard if it was in the right spot, but there is still that 16 feet between the two houses, and that's what my first question is.
Karen, we can't sit here today and say it's absolutely 16 feet because we don't have a survey of her property. What Mr. Billings has stated is that the distance between them meets the International Fire Code requirements, and therefore the fire issue is not, has been addressed. Looking at the two without going out and having a survey done or measuring them, it appears that it exceeds the 13 feet that we would have if it was 8 foot and 5 foot, but whether it's a full 3 foot or not, I couldn't sit here today and tell you.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Billings went out and did measure it, and he said it was close to 16 feet, which is why he was comfortable with the separation.
Okay. The solution for the two houses that are out there, other than giving them the ability to reduce that setback, would be to chop off that one house, part of the house. I mean, that's the only other solution that there is. The main issue to me is the drainage, I think. And I know in the Elks Country Estates out there, there's a lot of drainage issues. I mean, this isn't the first one that I've heard about. But it seems to me like there should be a different solution as far as getting that water away from her house. And I think it's a bigger issue than just the channel between the two. There's something beyond that that's not allowing the water to go through. And I guess I would ask Public Works if they've looked at that and have a solution in mind.
Ted?
We have not done an analysis of it. I mean, we've seen the pictures. It's really flat out there. The houses were built at minimum elevation. There's no slope between them. Granting this slight reduction will not fix that, and we have not looked at a solution. It's between private property owners. It's not within city drainage or city where the city has jurisdiction. So we haven't. I guess we're not in a position to provide or to mediate in this at this time.
So, to follow up, if I may, so the answer for her would be then to sue the developer of the property, not necessarily the contractor who built the house, but the developer who sold the lot, that kind of thing. That am I
Mr. Chair?
in the right spot?
So when these subdivision plats come in, they come in with a grading plan that shows that if the builders finish the grade on these lots in the design that the engineers that develop them show, they will drain accordingly. They will drain to the streets or to the drainage features that are implemented as a part of that development. This is an ongoing issue in many communities, and our community has experienced it on other lots too, where at the end of the day, the final grade of the site does not match what's needed in order for these sites to grade correctly. I don't know that it's the developer that is overseeing the final product. It's more so the builder. But as Ted indicated, the city has no authority to inspect that portion of the job, nor the manpower to do it, and therefore it does become an issue between the homeowner and their builder. I just wanted to make it clear that when we sign off on a subdivision, we have addressed these drainage issues. The developer has shown that these sites will drain if the final grading of the property is done in compliance with that grading plan. And unfortunately, that doesn't appear to be the case here.
Just one more follow-up. I know that there's a lot of inspections that the city goes out and does, and the city council has worked on soil testing and that kind of thing, and that's one of the issues that they're working through. This particular area, the Elks Country Estates, it has apparently low water table or high water table, I should say. It's close to the ground. But there have been numerous issues throughout the many years, and because of that, it would seem to me that the city should at least go out and inspect to see if the grading was correct. Or, I know that that's not standard process for the city to do some of those things, but there's got to be a way to find a solution for that whole area out there. And I don't know what it is, but I just want to be on record to say that something needs to be done for that whole area, I think, out there to solve some of those issues that have been in the past.
Mr. Chair? So we did have an internal meeting here, it's been a few months ago, with staff, because this is a concern. You know, we hate to see these property owners come in and experience the issues that they're experiencing. And with all the rain we had this spring, we got a lot of those phone calls. And one of the things we're looking at is using the development agreement, that new tool that's in the toolbox as a part of plating that makes the developer maintain responsibility till the closure of the project, to use that as the tool to engage that level of responsibility. You know, in many instances, if an inspector was to go out to the site, unless you're surveying it in, you're not going to tell where that drainage problem is until it rains or you've surveyed it in. And, you know, we can't even get surveyed drawings for a building permit for a residential development, let alone for just the grading. So it is something that we're looking at. I think this is a great discussion for us to have. I'm glad that Amanda can share this back with the City Council, that here's an exact example of where when a property isn't graded according to those development plans that come in as a part of the subdivision improvements, it becomes the responsibility of that property owner then to correct that drainage concern. Many of us that live in this city, me included, have spent thousands and thousands of dollars personally trying to resolve drainage issues because the lots were not graded according to the subdivision plans, and all of a sudden one particular lot serves more as a detention facility. So, but in this case, I think it's important to listen to the words of Ted when he says that reducing this setback is not going to correct the problem that exists on the adjacent property, or not reducing the setback, maintaining an 8-foot setback. That issue is going to be there independent of the reduction in this setback.
Galen.
How about now? There it is. I just want to concur with Karen's comments about, the drainage is the bigger issue, and also the reducing the setback probably won't solve the problem. But, I don't really see the right solution here. Is would continuing this or denying it put more pressure on the home builders to come up with a solution? I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking about here, as opposed to granting the reduced setback, essentially let somebody off the hook for making a mistake. So that's just my quick comment on the issue.
Vicki?
Denying the request today would require that the property owner either remove 3 foot of the structure or appeal this denial to the City Council for Council's further consideration. In either case, whether it's approved and or denied, again, removing this portion of the structure, and Ted, correct me if I'm wrong, is not going to resolve the drainage issues that are impacting the adjacent property. And I don't know, without our investigating the final grade issues on both sites, I don't know that the developer or the builder of the applicant before us had anything to do with the drainage problems that are occurring on the adjacent property. I believe that she said she did visit with her builder, and that he's indicated there's nothing more he can do, but it appears that those drainage problems are there independent of this reduction in setback.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to propose a motion. I see this as one of those items where ours is final unless appealed. I wondered if the motion could be to send this on to the council without recommendation, but with the discussion that we've had that property owners should continue to find a solution to the drainage before it goes up, if they're going to appeal. I mean, if we send it up, whether they appeal it or not, that they come to the council with some solution. Or if they bring it back here, I'm afraid that this body is not solving either the problem of the house setback or the drainage. And I think that that has to be worked out between apparently the developer and the adjacent property owner to bring back a solution before we would approve the setback. And what we heard this morning was that the drainage solution apparently is not working. And so I would be unprepared to vote to approve the setback without a drainage solution that both parties are happy with. So my recommendation is to forward this to the council without recommendation.
Carla?
Allison?
I'm
Allison?
sorry.
Carla.
Yeah, it says Carla. I'm covering for Carla Cushman this morning, Allison Krillin with the City Attorney's Office. Sending this to council without recommendation is not an option because under the ordinance, parties would have the ability to appeal to council only when a decision has been made. So council would not have authority to make a decision on this. In order for them to have authority to act, there needs to be a decision from Planning Commission that would then be appealed to them. So that would not be legally, procedurally, the appropriate way for things to happen. So,
Mr. Chair,
John?
may I propose a different motion? I propose that we continue this until the parties bring back an acceptable drainage solution between the parties, so that then we can consider the setback.
Okay. John's made a motion to continue. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Karen?
I concur with John's thoughts, and I am having difficulty approving the setback because of the drainage issue that's not being addressed. I would have made a motion to deny it so the city council could have heard it, but continuing this, did you have a date specific or just don't we have to set
I'm
a
open.
date?
I'm open a month.
Month? I don't know if that's
Vicki?
enough time, but.
I would suggest that you continue it to your next meeting, and we'll have, notify the applicant's consultant that he needs to be in the audience so that he can clearly explain why they can't correct the problem with the drainage improvements between the lots. But I think it's good that you guys have that information. So I think it is to the benefit of everyone that this item get continued, and we have that discussion potentially at your next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
One question I had, am I correct in reading this that because of the mislocation of the house, that it actually currently sits in what should be the drainage easement, or partially?
They have actually vacated the drainage and utility easement. They've brought in information to the city engineering division showing that this area is not needed to address the drainage issue. So we did in fact vacate that easement already.
Okay.
So now it's just a setback issue.
Well, I'm in concurrence with the motion. If there's any other discussion, then let's, all in favor of the motion to continue to our next meeting, which is August 27th, I think.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is continued. We're on to item 8. This one, I've got a question of procedure. I need to abstain from this due to relationship with the applicant. That leaves us with 4.
We're okay. You have to abstain.
So long as there was quorum at the start of it, you can abstain and we still maintain quorum.
Should I still play
You
chair?
cannot
or-
participate in the
Okay.
discussion or the vote, but I think you can certainly, I guess, Allison, rules of order?
that's correct. You can't, since you are abstaining, don't participate in discussion or vote, but I think it's fine for you to moderate the discussion, yes.
Sounds good. Item number 8.
Item number 8 is a preliminary subdivision plan to subdivide 43 acres of property located approximately 1,000 feet east of the intersection of Catron Boulevard and US Highway 16 on the south side of Highway 16. It's to be known as Buffalo Crossing. It will include 4 commercial lots, 54 townhome lots, and 6 single-family residential lots. We have this item on the non-consent so that Eric can abstain, but since it's on non-consent, let me show you some slides. This shows the zoning of the property. It's the hatched area. We've got general commercial, medium-density residential, some office commercial, and the area that's shown in yellow is low-density residential as shown there. You may remember at your last meeting that you recommended to approve a rezoning request to change that area to low-density residential 2. At last Monday's City Council meeting, Council approved the first reading of that rezone, and we anticipate that going forward at their next meeting. This shows the future land use plan. It's identified as mixed-use commercial. All of the uses that we discussed are permitted within that zoning designation. Here's a phasing plan of the property. It's a 5-phase development. It's going to be providing an extension of Healing Way, which would connect with Promise Road to the north. Healing Way is a collector street on our major street plan, and the developer is showing street connections both east and west to those adjacent properties, and there's been some coordination between those property owners, and we appreciate the developer working diligently with them to ensure that we've got both commercial and residential street and utility corridors being established between properties on the south side of Catron Boulevard. A layout of the site. This is similar to what we looked at with the rezoning application. The townhome development and the single-family residential development is in the southeastern portion with the commercial area to the northern end. The grading plan, and I've got some good pictures of the grading to show what a nice finished product that looks like. Here's a utility layout. There is an existing sewer main along what's to be known as Healing Way, and they are providing water and sewer main extensions as needed then to the balance of the subdivision. Addison Avenue, I'm standing at the very eastern terminus of it, looking east into the site. This is showing some of the finished grade work in that area. Looking north and east, and that looks at the residential development that exists along Catron. Looking west along Addison Avenue. Looking east on Catron Boulevard, and looking west on Catron Boulevard. We would like to say thank you to the developer for taking down the large billboard sign that was on the adjacent property. So thanks for that, and certainly it improved the aesthetics of the adjacent property as a part of that project. Looking south along Healing Way, and this is just showing that the rezone sign is still there. Also, some of the residential development that's adjacent to the area that will be maintained for drainage and detention purposes. Looking into the site again, some of the finished grade work. They just did a really good job reclaiming that site. There's a ravine that's going to be between the townhome development and the existing residential development, and they're preserving that ravine, and that's going to make for some beautiful home sites. The applicant did bring in a traffic impact study. Staff has currently provided some red line comments. We're still waiting on DOT comments on that. When the next phase of this project comes forward, we will anticipate a final traffic impact study at that time. Necessary decel lanes, turn lanes, and et cetera will be incorporated into the final construction plans as a part of that final project. We are recommending to approve this item with the stipulations as identified in the report. If you've got any questions, I'm here. The developer's also in the audience.
Karen Bowman?
I just need to be on record to recuse myself from this vote, too.
Any other comments, or are we still good on
We're
numbers?
still good. We still
Okay.
have 5. We've got 3 voting.
Perfect. The staff's recommendation is to approve per the stipulations. Motion has been made by Galen, seconded by Jan. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 2 abstentions. Item number 9.
Thank you. Item number 9 is 15 PD 021, a final plan development to allow alteration of an existing off-premise sign. In an effort to make this clear, let me go through some slides quickly as I explain this to you. Here's the location of the property. Zoning on the property is general commercial district. It is heavy industrial district on the east side of Campbell, with the exception of this lot. Mix of residential and commercial located on the west side of Campbell. Future land use plan shows the area is appropriate for light industrial development. Surveyed plan of the location of the existing sign, the easement that it's located in for the benefit of the sign company. This is what the applicant is proposing to do. Currently, what we have on the site is a double-decker sign, or two stacked sign too high. The applicant is proposing to remove the top sign and to reduce the size of the lower sign from, give me one moment here, to 378 square foot per side. Rapid City Sign Code requires a maximum of 250 square foot of signage per off-premise billboard. So the applicant is requesting an increase in the minimum or maximum required sign from 250 feet to 378 square feet. Rapid City Sign Code also says that if improvements to a billboard are being requested and all other land area regulations, including the size of the sign, are in accordance with the requirements of the ordinance, then the requirement for spacing between billboards can be waived. In this instance, since they are requesting the increase in the size of the sign, they must also then request the decrease in the spacing between the signs, since not all requirements of the sign code are in order. This is what they are proposing to replace the sign with. It's a 10-foot, 6-inch sign by 36-inch tall board with an overall height of 30 feet. That is the 30-foot height is in compliance with the requirements of the code. The square footage is not. Here's a look at the sign as it exists today with the plan development sign posted on the property. I'll look across the site at the sign as it is today. Look at East Minnesota Street looking west. Campbell Street looking south. Campbell Street looking north. The intersection of East Minnesota Street and Campbell Street. Location of the sign in context with the rest of the development in the neighborhood. And one more shot of the double-decker sign. Staff in reviewing this sees that the conditional use permit to allow the off-premise sign is fine. However, this area isn't a gateway to the community. It is on a principal arterial street to the community, and a revitalization corridor on the community as identified in the comprehensive plan. These things all combine to suggest that the signage in the area should be coordinated. And in the instance of billboards, that signage should be coordinated to comply with the requirements of the Rapid City Municipal Code. So as such, while staff can support the conditional use permit to allow the billboard, the requested exception to increase the minimum required or the maximum required square footage of signage is not in compliance with the requirements of the comprehensive plan, and it may have a detrimental impact to the neighborhood, especially as revitalization efforts in this area move forward. As such, staff does not recommend approval of the increase in the maximum square footage of signage, but does support a 250 square foot billboard. That being the case, staff also does not recommend approval or recommends denial of the exception for the spacing. If the Planning Commission should determine that a 250 square foot sign is appropriate, then the exception for the spacing is no longer required. We do have representatives from Lamar Advertising here today to speak with you about the request for the exception for the square footage of signage. Staff is available for questions at this time.
Thank you. John, you want to speak now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess probably I would like to hear from Lamar. I'd like to know why the request for something larger than the 250 square feet, if that was it. And the request for the 300-plus square feet that they have, is that consistent with the other boards that they have in place? So those two questions I would have if a representative of the company could speak to those.
Terry Olson?
What's that? Yeah, leave that up, yeah. Good morning, Terry Olson, Lamar Advertising, 3839 Sturgis Road here in Rapid City. Bob, can I put this up? We acquired this billboard and easement. We have a permanent easement on that billboard. It's going to be there a lifetime. What we want to do is clean it up. The industry standard has stepped up to the plate, and we have adopted 3 industry standard size billboards, we call it. The 1448, which is on the top, we use for the interstate. 10636 we normally use on 2-lane 55, and the 10622.9 is what we normally use in town. Now keep in mind, anytime we go large is very expensive for us. And also it's expensive for the advertiser because we charge by the square foot to put the billboard up. Now the bottom one, the 10622.9, is primarily what we use here in Rapid City. The reason we have industry standard sizes is because, well, the rally's going on, and what happens is Harley or Coke or any kind of liquid refreshment companies will print out 100+ signs at once and send them out to their advertisers. And then we can put them on our standard sizes, and then after the rally is over, the event is over, we can wrap them up and send them somewhere else. So that's why we adopted the industry standard sizes. Now, on the road to the north on Highway 79, we do have 2 more 10636. And also, about a year ago, we did apply to reduce a 1040 down to the bottom size. Now, the reason that we're requesting 10636 on this particular sign is because it's 100+ feet away from the road. It's a long read, we call it. Even on a left-hand read heading out of town, you're probably 150 feet from the advertising face. Now, I have included some pictures that we have done in the past. On Mount Rushmore Road, we had an ugly wood structure that we reduced down from, I think that one was 500 square feet, and we put a 10636 in there. About a year ago, your commission approved a sign on I-90. Well, we went from, I believe it was 1440 down to 106, and we built it on a monopole. Now, what we're trying to do is trying to appease our customers, because that 1440 and that on the bottom and that 12 and that 1020 on top, let's face it, it's an ugly sign, and we want to clean it up. And now I'm reducing the square footage down by half, down from 740 down to 378. Now, if I could wave my magic wand here and reduce half of the billboards in Rapid City, everybody would be in favor of that. In essence, that's what I'm doing. I'm reducing the square footage of this sign down. Now, I would love to go 10622.9 on that, but it'd be a lot cheaper for me, but it just won't sell. Now, also keep in mind the sign as it is probably will stay looking the way it is unless we can work something out. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm available for questions, and so thank you for your time.
John?
Follow up, if I may.
Yep.
I appreciate the explanation. I'm one of those people that is not very technically astute. So when I travel, I'm one of those people that looks for information on billboards. So I'm glad to see that there's a reduction being offered. And when you said that this is 150 feet off, I can tell you I can't read that far away on the smaller board. So I am going to move that the reduction, to me, is a good cleanup of the board, moving in the right direction. I believe it does contribute to the future revitalization of the area. If you look at that photo in the background, that's something that would be consistent with cleaning up the board. And so I would make a motion for the exception on the spacing and approve the 1036 size in this application.
Motion's been made and seconded by Galen. Any further discussion on that? Karen?
I guess my question, thank you. My question is, once this billboard is reduced down, the ability to make it an LED sign, that would not come before us if he met all the requirements through the process?
No, conversion of the sign to an LED message center would require a major amendment to the plan development, which would go before you again.
Okay, that was my major question. I understand the reasoning for reducing it down to where Lamar wants it reduced down to. I'm a firm believer that I think billboards eventually will be phased out. I just can't see that this is going to continue forever. We're one of the few states that allow this kind of proliferation of billboards, I guess, if you want to say that, in our city and in our state. Some of it I think is necessary, and I agree with that. But I would like to see all billboards be reduced down to 250 square feet, which is what our code says. And so because of that, I'm going to vote against this motion. I really appreciate the fact that you're reducing it down. It is a very ugly sign. I go by it every day, and I agree with that. But I think that eventually this billboard, I just think that it will become an LED sign, and I think that reducing it down to 250 feet, people will still see it at that point. So I'm going to vote no on the motion.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification, if this recommendation for approval goes forward to vote, there are two exceptions that need to be included as a part of this. The first being the increase in the square footage of the signage. The second being the reduction in the spacing between off-premise signs.
You're good with that, Galen?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with 1 no. Item number 10.
Item number 10 is a major amendment to a conditional use permit to expand an on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with a winery. Start some presentation. Property zone, Central Business District. It's the Firehouse Brewing Company and Firehouse Winery. Future land use, downtown mixed use. Elevation submitted by the applicant showing the facade of the building. What happened is that in 1997, a conditional use permit was approved for the Firehouse Brewing Company in this blue outline, and it did not limit the use to just beer and wine. It was just a conditional use permit for the on-sale, and they have a full liquor license at this property. In 2011, a conditional use permit to allow a winery was approved for the Firehouse Wine Cellars on this property, and it was specific to on-off sale wine sales. So what they're proposing to do is to expand the full liquor license from the Firehouse Brewing Company over to include the wine cellars as well. And this is located in our established downtown. It's an expansion. They're not proposing any further physical expansion of the property. It's the expansion of the use. And as such, staff recommends that the major amendment be approved with stipulations noted in the staff report. And the applicant is here with it for any questions, and staff is available for any questions.
Jan?
I'd like to say what a wonderful boss Bob Fuchs is, but I guess I have to abstain from discussing this.
Noted. Karen?
That was a, that was a great endorsement, I have to admit. My only question is that side of the property with the winery, are they going to serve food over there also, as well as at the firehouse on the other side?
Bob Fuchs with the Firehouse Brewing Company. We will be catering in a little bit of food from next door, but primarily when we're having events at the winery, we'd like to be able to serve a liquor drink.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I think the establishment as a whole is an asset to the downtown, so I'm hoping that the winery with alcohol will remain that too. So thank you.
John?
Well, in addition to being a wonderful boss, Bob has been a great host and a great part of the revitalization efforts downtown and that business. I recently toured the winery basement, the barreling room, with some friends from out of state that were staying with us. And the people on that gave me a little history of all the building that's in there and what's happened. I believe even named a wine after an Air Force gentleman whose wallet was found in the reconstruction. I just think that goes on to helping us make downtown everything that we'd hoped it had been as we started this journey 10 years ago, and longer for you. So I'm going to make the motion to approve this item.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries with one abstention.
Thank you.
Item number 11.
Thank you. Item number 11 is 15 UR 016, a conditional use permit to allow a microbrewery as a conditional use in the general commercial district for approximately 1.01 acres located at 1410 West Omaha Street, southeast of the intersection of Canal Street and West Omaha. Let me take you through some slides. Zoning map of the property shows a general commercial district. There's a mix of general commercial and light industrial to the south. To the west and north, you notice it is zoned flood hazard district. That's part of the Rapid City Greenway tracks and currently location of Hanson Larson Memorial Park. Future land use map of the property. The area is considered appropriate for mixed-use commercial development. Parks and Greenway to the north and to the west. So look at the site. Currently the property is developed with Black Hills Bicycles located on the easternmost portions of the property and Black Hills CrossFit located on the southern portions of the property. The applicant is proposing this microbrewery to be located on the western side of the property right there. It's comprised of approximately 2,960 square foot of suite space inside. No exterior seating or service is being proposed as part of this conditional use permit. Look at the building itself. Again, you can see the location of the microbrewery right here. They do have a small tasting room associated with this. The barrels of production is slated to begin at less than 1,000 barrels per year. Rapid City ordinance requires a microbrewery be less than 5,000 barrels per year. So they're well within the established limitations for a microbrewery. Look at the suite itself. As you can see, they've got their brew tanks in the tasting room located there. Look at the exterior of the suite. You can see the on-premise liquor sign posted there next to the overhead door. Omaha Street looking to the west. Omaha looking east. This is Canal Street looking to the south. Across the street at the intersection and the Hanson Larson Memorial Park or the Fish parking lot. Look onto the property showing some of the existing landscaping, the existing parking lot. another look at the site. And this one showing the entire site. The applicant showed, or the submitted plan showed that the minimum 53 parking spaces would be required for all the uses that are being proposed for the property. This would be the bicycle shop, the CrossFit, and for this location. Submitted plans also show that a maximum of 48 spaces can be provided on the site. Prior to submittal or during review of this application, the applicant submitted an administrative exception to administratively reduce the required amount of parking on the site from 52 to 48. It's a reduction of about 9%. Rapid City ordinance allows administrative reductions of up to 20% without being required public hearing. So parking is in compliance with the requirements of the Rapid City Municipal Code. The area is kind of in an area that's beginning to see a little bit of redevelopment. We have had some neighboring properties with some concerns or at least interest in this development. They have provided a letter which has been provided to you as a letter on the dais before you. Well, they don't indicate any opposition to the request, but they do acknowledge that redevelopment is ongoing in this area and that they may have plans for their own development in the future. Staff sees this as a good continuing revitalization and adaptive reuse of an existing property, and with that recommends that the application be approved with the stipulations outlined in the staff report. They do have representatives of the microbrewery here in attendance, as well as, I believe, some representatives for the author of the letter. Staff is available for questions at this time.
John?
Thank you. I'm hastily reading the letter you referred to, so question of the applicant, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Jesse Scheitler, Lost Cabin Beer Company.
Couple of questions. Thanks for coming down today. Is this letter from you?
No, the letter is from the owner of the Landstrom's property.
And so I read it, and I don't. Although they endorse it, do they ever get? Are they for it or against it?
They endorse it. They request that due to their future plans of potentially putting a brewery in the Landstrom's property, that we would extend the same goodwill towards them, and we have no objection to that. We're actually leasing the property, so I don't know that we have the authority to give goodwill on it, but the more the merrier, I guess is how we see it.
Understand. In a microbrewery, and I don't know how this works, is all of your production sold on site, or is there an off sale?
There will be off sale. We will have distribution through a wholesaler.
Through a wholesaler. Mm-hmm. Can I walk in and buy it at off sale in the?
At this point, there won't be any packaged. There will be growlers. I don't know if you're familiar. It's like a small 64-ounce glass. I know the Firehouse and Independent Ale House, Miss Liquor, a couple other establishments in town offer growler sales. But at this time, there won't be any packaged on sale.
So if you're hugely successful, maybe the development of the adjacent property will be you.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, yes.
There's some goodwill. One last question. The ingress and egress from the site, is it all on Omaha, or is there access? Is it Canal Street that runs?
There's access on Canal Street as well.
There is, through the parking area?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is not for you, so I appreciate your comments. So,
thank you.
I support the application. My question really is to the letter, and I don't know if we need that person up there. Really, it's a question I think for staff. If they would come in, I mean, there's not a lot of alcohol establishments close by, so I'm assuming that they would still meet within, not a proliferation of establishments, so that this would not impact them in the future, and then that's the future. So that's my question. That and the fact that they mentioned something about a residential units on top, that I wasn't sure of, but I'm curious to know what the response is from staff on the letter.
Well, upon receiving the letter, I sent back a reply to the sender encouraging him to call me at his very earliest convenience so that we could go over some of the components of the letter. We have not reviewed the site to see if it's in close proximity to other things that limit on sale versus the property that's at hand today. I don't believe that there is, though. It's an exciting idea of what they want to do. The residential did catch my eye, too. When you're in general commercial, having residential and commercial can create a conflict. So we would want to have that discussion with them before they got too far into design. So if you can pass the word on to the sender, if they would like to call us, we can have those more detailed discussions. But we're excited about the revitalization of the Landstrom property, too. This is great for our community.
I agree. Thank you.
John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move approval of item number 11. I have to note in the commercial that in the past, I noticed, is there CrossFit that's going in or is in there adjacent to your property? They're good with that? So we have a health place next to a very healthy beverage place, I'm assuming. And we previously had to put a beverage establishment into another health organization several months ago. So it seems to be a trend. So I'm happy to continue the trend with a recommendation to approve this application.
Motion has been made by John, seconded by Karen to approve item 11. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item number 11 is passed. Discussion items, staff items, other items? All right. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Dan made the motion, Galen seconded. All those in favor? Aye.